you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Great. I am so excited that you were able to join me for this first episode of Closing Credits. And it's a very special episode, not just because it's our first, but because the people voted and democracy works. So can you tell us a little bit about the movie the people elected for us to watch?
The people chose for us to watch Margin Call, a 2011 workplace drama written by J.C. Chander. Really great, kind of one of the earliest movies probably about the financial crisis in 2008, but like kind of interesting 24 hours, like high stakes at one bank in the early stages of 2008. And, people were already aware, like, some things were not good,
Yes.
but this is like kind of the moment when, they realize, oh, shoot, it's all hitting the fan.
Yeah. So this was a very popular pick, obviously, both in voting. And then in the comments, people really indicated it's an iconic film. It's a film that I think everyone has seen. I don't know how many people will have seen it in 2026 for the first time. Certainly you and I did not see it. This was Chander's first feature-length film. And it's a banger. He writes and directs it. And then he goes on to make the following films. Please tell me if you have seen any of these. All Is Lost, A Most Violent Year, Triple Frontier, and Craven the Hunter.
Absolutely none of them. But I have seen probably most movies that Stanley Tucci has been in since then.
Okay,
because the cast is like so iconic.
It's stacked.
It's early days Zachary Quinto and Penn Badgley as like children. I mean,
Yes.
they're in their 20s. And then Stanley Tucci, Paul Bettany, Jeremy Irons, Kevin Spacey,
Yes.
Demi
Sex
Moore,
Fest, Kevin Spacey.
it's like so stacked. And I read that J.C. Chander wrote this film in 4 days. And like, it was pretty much the film.
We didn't even have large language models at that time. That's crazy.
No. And apparently he was like, this is what I read. I think it may have been in Semaphore. So they reported. But I read that he wrote this in 4 days, like while he was interviewing for a job outside of the film industry.
Oh my God.
So
I did not verify this, but someone told me that his father probably works in high finance or investment banking. And that's kind of why some of the script or the dialogue reads so well, is he had that kind of inside, the inside knowledge.
He knew the language.
So when did you see Margin Call? Can we talk about this?
Yes. So I was, I was I think I was in middle school when the financial crisis happened. And so Margin Call came out a few years later. I probably saw it in high school. And it was kind of like one of the earlier intros for me to like learning more about the financial crisis. I mean, I wasn't really super aware of what was going on at the time. And I mean, now I've become a banking reporter. I've written about this for 6 years and have learned a lot. But no, this was kind of like early intro for me.
Did you guys all pile into your friend's mom's minivan and go to the movie theater and then all watch it? Or like were you watching with your parents? It seems like a parents' movie. You'd all go pick a family movie.
Yeah. I feel like the first time I watched this, it was like at someone's house, and I kind of think their parents chose it. But
it's a strange pick for a high schooler.
I mean, this is but it's not a strange pick for a high schooler's parents to force them to watch. But we all really liked it. I mean, like, it didn't, like, we can talk about this later. I think we both have thoughts, but like, I think the first time I watched it, I almost didn't really think of it as like a movie about the financial crisis. I thought of it more as like a workplace drama and kind of like a warning to certain things, which I know that you have thoughts on that too. But yeah, I mean, I've seen it a number of times since then. Actually, like probably like 4 or 5 times since then. That's
crazy. That's a lot of rewatching of a very like pretty stressful movie where also kind of separately not a lot happens.
I know. I don't know. Like, it's funny because it's 24 hours, so it's like relatively fast paced, but
Right.
also it's like it's slow enough. It almost feels like a comfort movie, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, and the script is so like on point. I mean,
Yeah.
like no lines wasted. Anyway, what was your first viewing?
So I'm older than you. I see this movie in 2011 when it comes out. I am working at SNL Financial. I am a baby financial reporter, but I have a lot of like also baby financial reporter friends. So we're very early in our career. And, the movie is about a crisis that kind of just happened, or we're like 2 years, 18 months maybe technically removed from that. And so we felt like so smart watching this movie, right? Because you kind of understand everything. You're like, oh man, that's probably exactly how the meltdown at these investment banks happened. I'm covering banking. I've always covered like traditional commercial banking, but we did have some of my friends were covering the investment banking side. And so we're probably more tuned into that. And obviously, like, a lot of these investment banks, if they didn't fail, became bank holding companies. So it was a very weird time. And then it was also like around this time, the genre of like Too Big to Fail comes out as a book. And so there's all this like trying to figure out and explain exactly what happened in the financial crisis and then what we did about it. 2010, Dodd-Frank is passed. And so there's this like kind of sifting through the rubble aspect of seeing this movie in theaters in 2011, working at SNL Financial with all my like finance journalism friends. I have not rewatched it since then. It's not something I would ever just put on for fun. And now that I
First
have
rewatch in 15 years.
yeah, no, no, my notes showed that. And it's funny because like I do have financial journalism friends, but like we're not of the type that would all go to a movie together. Like, and when we go to these conferences, it's not like there's a movie room playing, so like I feel like I have friends, but our relationship has changed and it doesn't involve like going to a movie on a Saturday anymore, sadly.
Yeah, no, I would never say that you don't have friends, Kiah. I know you do, but also like this movie feels really kind of to my point earlier about like not having a ton of financial details at times or what you mentioned. Like it feels really accessible,
Sure.
to
That's
like
one
any
way
like
to describe
you
it.
don't have to be in finance to
Right.
like this movie.
Right.
And in fact, maybe people in finance like I don't know. Maybe some of them like this movie less, although clearly not the voters for this
I think
podcast.
I think what people like about this movie, not that it's financial, but I think it nails the vibes. I think it
Yes.
also nails like a very recent vibe. And so if you like when you watch like It's a Wonderful Life, you're like, oh, that's clearly in the past. And that's not like how we don't even transact and bank that way. But margin call kind of looks like how firms like that, how business lines like that still actually work today, right? Like it's a modern financial movie. It's not like they're on a trading
Bloomberg
floor.
terminals everywhere.
Yeah. High rises, New York, right.
Yeah. Anybody with Bloomberg terminal account subscription knowledge, let us know if there's a Hollywood discount because Bloomberg terminal on every screen.
This is something we're going to have to start tracking is how many Bloomberg terminals does this movie have? And what do we think that says about the like budget for props?
Totally. I mean, like, it should be any movie from like the late 80s to now should have, but that's a good point.
Okay, so Margin Call was shot in 17 days. And my fun fact for you is, and this is like kind of like financial crisis history. There's been thoughts that the movie was about a firm like Lehman Brothers or Bear Stearns. So Lehman Brothers fails and Bear Stearns is acquired by JP Morgan. But in an interview, Chander said that the firm in question that he modeled it off of is still alive and well. And of the investment banks that went through the crisis, the one that is still alive and well, and maybe even better than what it was in the crisis, is Goldman Sachs. So you can go ahead and do a reading of this firm as Goldman Sachs, but I don't know what that would say about the people who work at Goldman Sachs as this movie portrays them.
Okay, that is a fun fact that he said like the firm that this was based off is still alive and well.
Yes.
Interesting. Even though, I mean, like, obviously the CEO in the movie, John Told, I mean, like, you know, there was Dick Fold. And
I know.
Like,
The name. That was, I mean, I think that's that plus the fact that the firm is trying to avoid financial trouble, but we don't actually know if the firm lives or dies, right? Because the movie ends. So
I guess we don't. Yeah, I guess we don't. Yeah. Well, that is a fun fact. Cheeky of JC Chander to say. Okay, my fun fact is not about banks, but Jeremy Irons, apparently his work visa, he's British, so his work visa for the US expired. So they shot this film over 17 days, but Jeremy Irons only had like 1 weekend to do all of his scenes. And obviously he has like all those iconic boardroom scenes and like the dinner scene. He shot it all in like 3 days or something. It was like 20-hour days.
Yeah.
And I think that was great because they were supposed to be exhausted and stressed. And so, you know.
That's some real method acting.
Yeah, method.
Well, okay. So my first question for you, Catherine, getting into this movie specifically is what is going on in this movie and what feels real to you?
So, I mean, in this movie, we have this 28-year-old like discover that the firm is screwed if they don't
After a massive layoff. He's like he's like the only one left standing.
He's the only one left standing. I guess his boss was like, I have this thumb drive, which that's of its time, but I have this thumb drive with, you know, maybe something you want to look at. He finds out the firm is screwed if it keeps this book on its, or if it keeps this portfolio on its books, on its balance sheet. And I mean, that felt real in a way. I mean, like, I don't know if you know, you had 28-year-olds who were like calling up the chain to get the board of directors into a boardroom at 4 a.m. But like the ethos felt real. Like you said, the vibe, right? Like that felt real, like the panic. And like, I'm sure that if they did discover that at 10 p.m., they would be up all night.
So
what about you?
One of the things about this movie is it just like jumps us in a day at the workday. It's probably like, I think it's like a Wednesday or a Thursday, which is when they do these layoffs.
I think it is a Thursday.
I think there's I think it's not Friday because they open and sell the next day.
Spoiler.
Yeah, sorry. there's a sale. What I okay, so again, remember, I haven't watched this movie for 15 years. I feel like I remember what I know it's about, but I was kind of shocked that we don't like know what's going on economically in this film. We don't have like a TV or a radio that says like the unemployment rate jumped X%, or like housing prices have, for the first time ever, not increased according to the Case-Shiller index, right? So we just like jump into this like work day where HR is calling people to lay them off, but we don't know we kind of don't know why. You and I have been around long enough that we know why mass layoffs happen. But we don't know if it's just
we're journalists, so we know why mass layoffs happen.
And we're journalists, we kind of know why mass layoffs happen.
No, but they say it's a bloodbath. And that's kind of like all of our context for like the economic situation.
Right. But is that every other company is also doing something similar? Or is it just like, was this firm acquired and then they're announcing all the cuts? Like, you have to, but if you're watching in 2011, you know exactly like, oh yeah, 2011, like, I think is still, I don't know if unemployment is increasing, but it's certainly not decreasing. And so that would, you can extrapolate like a firm-wide layoff to being economic weakness, but like, I couldn't necessarily draw that. And then, stuff goes wrong immediately. Like the one guy who's been tracking this thing for 2 weeks gets laid off. Like
Stanley Tucci
gets laid off.
Eric Dale.
Yeah.
In the film.
And then also they turn off his cell phone. And I love that like no one has a second cell phone. Like, I don't know if that's very realistic. If I had a company cell phone, am I getting rid of my cell phone? You know what I mean?
In 2011, I'm not sure. Like, what if they gave him his like company cell phone in like 2001, you know?
Right. And then And then like from there, one guy's working really late, discovers everything's going bad, and then the like cavalry is called, and then they have to have an all-night meeting. And like I guess that kind of feels real, but that feels like a very compressed timeline. And we'll kind of get into like how they describe what goes wrong. But I just kind of struggle to place myself in time in 2026 watching this movie and being like, I don't even know what year it is. It could be, you assume it's 2008, but like it could be like 2015. You know what I mean? Like it could have been like
in 2011.
Know. Yeah, it could have been any year.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you have to go in, like, I think that they assume you'll go in with a certain understanding of the situation.
Or that you'll remember anything that happened.
Well, I mean, I didn't remember. but yeah. Okay. I mean, so what do you then think, like, wish the movie like included? What do you wish, like what do you wish it was if it wasn't this?
I can kind of go back and forth on this. Like, I'm a nerd. I'm going to always kind of love a nerd explanation, but I genuinely do not like, I was kind of surprised. This movie is about some mortgage-backed securities that have changed in value and they need to sell. That's it. It takes probably halfway through the movie for the phrase mortgage-backed securities to be stated. It's not clear ever why these MBSs lose value. They kind of gloss over how this investment bank came to hold so many. And they do it in part because apparently they're securitizing them. And so they have to hold it so they can securitize everything, and then they have to sell them. And that's kind of like, I feel like if I didn't know about securitization, I would have probably missed that. So I'm like not even sure how that is happening. And then as you and I talked about, they don't really talk about what's in these MBSs until Paul Bettany's character Will explains, like in his like fuck normal people speech, that like the bank, in doing these MBSs, in giving mortgages that were inappropriate for the borrower or essentially fraudulent, that they allowed people to have lifestyles that they otherwise wouldn't have been afforded. And I just felt like the movie really glossed over that, which is ironic because it's trying to make the point that like people did not understand the risks they were taking. And it feels like the movie can't explain it. So the movie is guilty of the same things it's accusing its characters of being. Like that's what I wish was in the movie. Do you wish the movie was more financial or about the right amount of financial?
I think it's the right amount of financial. I mean, first of all, I think that like it's all totally accurate. Like, I don't think I think they nail it because, you know, maybe if they had gotten more in depth, you know, whatever. But I think it's all totally accurate. But, I mean, I don't think this movie is about like the mechanisms of the 2008 financial crisis. You know, it's not about like housing bubbles or mortgage-backed securities. It's, you know, like a warning, or a reflection perhaps of the conditions that build into like a financial crisis. And like, or you're right, like what?
Or tip. They like tip. Like, it's been good and then it goes bad. And it's like that moment of the roller coaster.
And to your point, I agree. I think that part of this financial crisis was because there were all of these complex financial instruments that like a ton of people just didn't understand. I mean, you hear Kevin Spacey at one point, like Will, the character Will, brings the charts in and is like, I need you to look at this. And he's like, I can't look at these. I don't know how to read
these. That made
me
so mad. I was like, you have worked at this company for 40 years and you don't know how to read this stuff?
Yeah, mad, but like, is it unrealistic? Like, I mean, you know, it's kind of like I think it's smarter than like, oh, we don't understand this, so we won't include it. I think it's like, they don't understand this.
They don't understand it.
So like we, you know, the line, the famous Jeremy Irons line, when he says like, explain this to me as if I'm a 5-year-old or a golden retriever. I mean, like, come on. That's the only time that we hear him talk about mortgage-backed securities. But like, also importantly, you know, you mentioned that Paul Bettany's character, he has that like, you know, normal people rely on us to like get get cars, get homes, whatever. Like we're like their gods, basically. I mean, like I think the fact that no, like people in this firm are not talking about normal people at all
Yeah.
is it's like notably absent, like
Right.
clearly like the whole time they're not thinking about, or at least they're not talking about in this 24-hour compressed timeline that we see, the impact on like people who own
Right.
who like own their homes across the country or whatever. And like also, Kiah, we have disagreed on this in the past, but I don't think consumers, like normal average people who aren't in finance, should know about like complex financial things. And I don't think they do, and I don't think that's their responsibility. I think like the average person should be able know enough to like borrow from a bank, get a loan for a mortgage, pay their mortgage, and like as long as they pay their mortgage, all is well and good for them. And I don't think they should have to like think about more than that.
Okay, I was gonna say, to your point about the told line, explain to me like I'm a German or a golden retriever.
Golden retriever.
Golden retriever.
Not a German shepherd.
Not a German shepherd. Different dogs. We say that as journalists. Like that is a really common phrase, like journalism students the world over are taught to say to people, and to admit like I don't know what this is. And I actually and I feel like the takeaway is like, one, get the quote the way you need it to be if it needs to be kind of like simplified, but also that you should spend time with the things you don't understand, and you should until you understand them enough that you can explain them to someone else. And so when you say, explain it to me like I'm stupid, or explain it to me like I'm third grader, how would you tell it to your mom, right? That's all about the comprehension. And I don't think common people, quote unquote, need to understand these things. But I think one of the points of this movie is like, it's about the 2008 financial crisis, in which many, many people were hurt by and, led to the longest, economic recovery. This used to be more controversial. It's not anymore, but I argued for a bit that the 2008 financial crisis or 2007 financial crisis contributes to the first presidency of Donald Trump. So if you can't understand why these things happen and then how we fix them and why people are angry and what they get angry about, then like we have like reactionary politics and we have populist movements, and in many ways we might be kind of creating the same conditions that lead to this crisis. We were replicating it. And so that's maybe not for this movie, but like explaining complexity so that people feel like they understand it and they are not surprised or tricked or betrayed by these things is like, I don't know, part of my guiding principles. And like, then I get to argue and say that this movie didn't abide by that principle. And I think that that's a fair critique, because I think it tried to make that point but not abiding by it.
I think this movie was saying like, I mean, I hear you on like understanding like certain things, but I guess like to your point, I like do think that people should understand, what's going on in the world around them.
Yeah.
But like generally, not everyone can
like
be an expert
FDIC insurance and synapse. Yeah, I mean, like we don't want to get into that, but yeah.
Not everyone should be an expert about everything.
Right. We wouldn't have jobs.
No. And I think like what like this movie says the like financial crisis, or at least like vulnerabilities in the financial system, can often be traced to, at least in part, is like hubris and lack of understanding and lack of caring, sort of a separation between like these bankers and like the normal world
and the normies.
I mean, you hear like Penn Badgley's character say at one point, like I'm 23 and make $250,000, and all I do is like push numbers around on a screen that some like random guy halfway across the world like uses to like pretend to understand, instead of like betting on horses. Like,
right. Yeah.
So I mean, like I think that like this And like, you don't need to understand. I don't think you need to understand what the numbers he's pushing across the screen are.
Right.
But I think it's important that people know, like, that, that was
that dynamic for sure. And that the almost like alienation between people and the products and the dollar signs, and like how Penn, throughout the movie, he comes to understand that, like, he's so focused on how much money everyone makes. And which I think is his number one purpose in this movie, is to ask that and to really underline
so funny every time.
and to underline that, and then to understand that, like, he might get laid off. Real people are going to get hurt. They're going to lose their houses. That they're going to lose houses that they shouldn't have had that exact house or that exact mortgage. And to kind of understand where he is in the chain, and that the chain will come for him as well. And he is not high enough up on that chain to kind of survive. And he had told himself that either he wasn't in the chain, or that, obviously that he was important enough and he had moved up his social ladder enough that he wouldn't be impacted by the consequences either of him or his colleagues or his firm, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I guess, like, talking about Penn and like that dynamic, like, what did you make of how it portrayed all of the different roles and the hierarchy here?
The org chart of this company, it was okay. So the number one thing is, like, the org chart gets messed up because everyone gets fired. And then like, also, I'm not sure. The other thing too is, like, an important but unspoken thing is the desks. So it seems like Kevin Spacey's character, Sam Rogers, who's in trading, is on the same floor as Penn and Zachary Quinto, who are compliance or risk?
Risk, I think.
Okay. And like, compliance might be different from risk, but those two characters report up to Stanley Tucci, who gets laid off, and Stanley Tucci reports to Demi Moore. It seems like Kevin Spacey, who is the head trader, and Demi Moore are like probably like pretty comparable in seniority or rank.
I think one more above Kevin Spacey, which is Jared Cohen, that character.
Isn't he both of their bosses? Or no?
I think he's equal to Demi Moore, Sarah Robertson.
Okay.
I think he's head of capital markets.
Okay. He's like the dumbest character, knows nothing. Like, I think one of the clear things is that he's younger than Kevin Spacey, and that's probably annoying. He probably can play politics, is maybe what you're supposed to like ascertain from that. So this org chart makes no sense, especially at the bottom. Like, whatever, at the executives it doesn't matter, but the org chart makes no sense. And then, like, the other thing you learn is that, like, all of the risk department got laid off except two very junior people.
Wait,
right?
Did they say that? Did they say the whole risk department got laid off except for these two people?
I put in my notes, like, I think these are like paraphrased from the movie. 80% of the floor, only 33 people left, and I think that's on that floor. And then somehow 2 people in risk is like what I wrote. So I think it's risk for the trading group, I think is what it was.
Or for MBS specifically.
Yeah, maybe.
I didn't have these issues with the hierarchy.
I immediately clocked them. I was like, this is insane.
I did have a little like chart going in my head. Okay. I eventually did write it down on a little notepad. But no, I didn't mind it. I mean, notable that the risk people were the ones who like fell on the sword.
Yeah, who had to take cuts, yeah.
Yeah, and even at the end of the movie, like when they were like, oh, we're gonna have to like really cut back, it was, Demi Moore's character who they were like, it's gonna be you.
Yeah.
Right. Not the salesman, not the Jared Cohen killer character.
It's not clear what Paul Bettany does from like a job perspective.
He's trading.
He's a trader. He's not. Did he call people that day?
Yeah. Okay. During the fire sale. Yeah. At the fire sale, that's all him on the phone.
Oh, okay. It wasn't like other people. Okay.
No, it's all him on the phone calling the different banks. Which I loved that scene.
I love the fire sale. I love the fire sale.
That
To
was
be clear,
crazy.
as someone who likes specific financial concepts in movies, I loved the fire sale.
You were like, a $131 million loss on one trade.
Yes.
That's something I can get.
I can understand the dynamic here. Also, counterpoint, were the risk people bad enough at their job that they should have been fired, not laid off?
No, it sounds like, because, well, okay. I don't think probably anyone was appropriately accounting for the risks. That's pretty clear from the whole financial crisis that like the people at the big banks were not appropriately accounting for the risk. But that said, I mean, Sarah Robertson character, Demi Moore, she mentions that she had brought up some of these concerns like a year ago.
Not as strongly, yeah.
No, she was like, I didn't like push it, but she was like, I brought them up on Stanley Tucci's, sounds like, recommendation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how much can you do when like your boss says pass?
Right. And also, if you don't have like policies that require, it would have been so funny. And again, this is my financial reporter brain, but like, wouldn't it be really funny if they were like, oh, don't worry about that. We've insured it through a CDO with AIG. We don't have to worry about any of this.
Like if they said that in the movie?
Yeah, wouldn't that be so funny?
Again, yes, it would have been funny. That is financial reporter brain. But
it's terrible. I mean, don't put me on your movie. I will just put little jokes for myself in your movie, and it won't appeal to the masses. Yeah.
When I go make my movie, I'll be sure to keep that in mind. But no, I mean, I think that actually though goes back to kind of what I was saying about how this movie isn't really about like the financial crisis. It also, sorry, I'm just like slowly collecting points to prove my overarching.
As I had previously said, that it's not about the financial
but
crisis.
But like, the risk manager was like, I pointed this out, and but you don't know what she pointed out. Like, she doesn't say like what.
Going back to my critique that it's too vaguely financial, we don't know what was said. Yes.
And that's fine. But like, I think it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. She pointed something out. We don't know what it is, but that doesn't, like, she pointed something out and they were like, risk. We don't care.
So the fire sale.
Loved this one.
Kevin Spacey, before he's a problematic man, this was a great performance. Sam Rogers, is clearly conflicted. He receives orders he doesn't want to execute because he is worried about selling toxic assets to counterparties. And my question for you, which I love this scene, I love, this part of the movie, is Kevin Spacey, who is conflicted, but ultimately does the fire sale, and it seems to go successfully, a good guy or a bad guy?
Okay, let's use his character name because I don't want to talk about Kevin Spacey.
Sam Rogers.
Is he a good guy or a bad guy?
All of these people have the ensemble cast is more iconic than their characters, and that's why we keep like doing this. But yes, Sam Rogers.
Is he a good guy or a bad guy? I mean, look, he did it. And like, not only that, he got to this point. Who knows what else? Like, and they kind of imply that. They imply that a lot of these people have gotten to where they are because of decisions they've made in the past that have put them in this situation, like in this situation of financial crisis. And I mean, he brings up like selling toxic assets, but more in the context of like, we'll never work again. Like, this will hurt our careers. Like, our bank will lose our reputation. And so then they're like, that's why he's like, everyone can have $2.5 million bonus if they do this. And also, I thought it was also interesting that Zachary Quinto's character brings up his son, and like, and then you hear Sam talk to his ex-wife about his son later. Clearly his son worked at a different bank and was like going to be impacted by this. He was like, I never thought to call my son or tell him.
You can't be telling your competitors inside information like that.
Oh, come on. But like, he never thought to even, like he was like, I didn't even think about that. I think that he has been like, numbed. Yeah. And he never really talks. I don't think he ever talks about like people will lose their homes, you know?
Right.
Like they might mention like small businesses at some point in the boardroom. I feel like I have some vague recollection of that, but I mean, they're not that's not his primary concern.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too, and like, I think it's interesting because I think his motivations as a character, he is worried about counterpart. Like, he just won't have any counterparties. You are going to screw over your counterparties, right? Like, that's the first impact. And he's the one who I think encounters the first negative consequence of this action. They're trying to stay alive, but in order to stay alive, they need to poison all of their other competitors with this. And I mean, it's funny because in a fire sale, like, I mean, they talk about like, I think like Paul Bettany's character will say like 85, 65, 63, whatever. And you can see these marks and it's like, I think, the financial report in me is like very interested in that kind of negotiation and dynamic and of the pricing of the risk. Like when we think about private credit right now, and Boaz Wiseman, I think, has like, they will buy your shares that are stuck in a private credit for like 65 cents on the dollar. And like, so they think they're worth something. And I think that's just so interesting, that like financialization, but you're right. Like, I mean, he's right. Like long term, you don't have counterparties. And in fact, if your counterparty stays alive, they hate you. But it's also funny too, because like financial markets just don't have long memories. And so like, who else will they trade with? Or, thinking about like, why the other part, who else can they sell a sophisticated like investor instrument to? I mean, think about private credit retail, right? Like maybe, do you want to be part of, a securitization? Does your pension, does your insurance company need to buy some of these things? And it is interesting to be like, well, who is dumb enough? Or, you can only sell in the fire sale, you can only sell so much before it becomes obvious what's happening.
Right. I mean, you hear during the fire sale, you hear it like shows the timestamps, and at like it starts at like 9:36 a.m. or something, and at like 1:05, it's like some guy from, they answer and they're like Deutsche, and he's like, he's like, kick rocks. Like, I'm not, like, we've heard what you're doing. Get out of here. Like, and he hangs up. Like, you're right.
So that's why, like, I think he's a bad guy because he knows better. But like, what else was you supposed to do? Like, sometimes you got to be a bad guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes. But But how many times was he a bad guy to get to this bad guy moment?
I mean, right. This was the most recent bad guy.
I also, something that I thought was pretty crazy, his dog died that day, right? Like his beloved, sweet dog,
right.
Ellie.
$1,000 spending in 2008, you know what I mean?
Like a day to keep the cancerous dog alive. And this movie ends with him, like, burying his dog. And to me, it was like, not to get too like symbolic, but it was literally like burying innocence, like this sweet, perfect little dog who probably like did no wrong in her life. Like he literally like shovels a hole in the ground, puts her in, covers her up.
Yeah.
I mean, like, come on, like that's
you're a bad guy because you're a bad
poetic.
guy.
It's poetic. Yeah.
It was a little interesting that was like, again, in the 24 hours, that was just a thing that and you could cut that. You could have cut that, right? Like, it doesn't really impact the plot at all. It does kind of make him hard to get in touch with when he leaves work and then he has to come back. I am sometimes reminded that, like, people who work at these companies, like, they kind of move money around to a little bit. Penn Bagley, whatever, talks about that. And then, like, to think that, like, this guy, Sam Rogers had to interact with a vet who was, like, actually doing something and trying to make the world a better place, or trying to help comfort this dog that's in pain. And then, like, then they all go to work and they, like, offload these toxic acids on other people just to, like, just to fight another day. Like, because they didn't manage their risk and they assume no one's managed their risk, and so they just need to like push the hot potato around. And like, there's people who, like, whose jobs aren't pushing a hot potato around,
Yeah, no, totally. That's funny. And it's real. Going back to your question about, like, does this feel real? That feels real, I know that is an eternal theme in financial movies, is the hot potato. Well, Yeah, and like the dog dying is what I meant, but
Yeah.
like, interact. But both.
Yeah, sure.
I guess that speaks to it. Both.
So we talked about there's a fire sale in this movie. The movie is called Margin Call. I do, given my perspective of exactly how much specific financial themes need to be in a movie, I don't like that it's called Margin Call. This is definition like assumes we're a retail investor or we're like an investor
Right.
with a brokerage. When I think about margin call, it's just you have collateral that falls in value. And so the terms of the loan require that the value, like you put in enough, something that's valuable, like makes up the value, whatever, that delta. And so that's the firm communicating with you that you need to cover this shortfall of value from the initial collateral is the margin call. And if you can't make that margin call, the collateral gets liquidized and potentially you're put into default, right? Like you have violated the terms of the contract or the loan. And so I can see like how a firm like this would have a margin call made against them. And in fact, I think there's a margin call in The Big Short, where because Lehman is like Lehman can't borrow money to stay liquid. And I believe it's because of some like asset valuation issues / a margin call. So when we watch The Big Short, we can go see if I'm correct about that. There's not a margin call in this movie, and that makes me upset. Okay. It makes me mad.
Okay, so there's no margin call. So what would you rather this movie be called instead?
Well, because I'm so literal, one thing is fire sale, which sounds way less cool than margin call. And I'm trying to think of like something about securitization, like that also is bad, right?
Right? You're asking.
These are bad, right?
That sounds like a Spielberg hit, actually. Securitization.
Toxic assets?
That makes it sound like a nuclear situation.
Like a zombie movie.
Yeah. I feel like margin call kind of it gives the audience some room to assume what's going on, right? I think it was also easy pickings. I don't know what I would call the movie. It would be like Too Big to Fail.
Oh, is that anything?
That's original, I think.
I was thinking about how we're going to watch a bunch of these movies, and they're all going to be about money and banking and finance. Very important people. Yeah. And so everyone is supposed to be taking care of business, but they're not always taking care of business, right? Hence, we don't have a movie. So in Margin Call, would you say our friends, Fold and Will and
I can't remember anything.
Sam and whoever Zachary Quinto's character's name is?
Peter.
Are our friends taking care of business in this movie, or are they not taking care of business?
I think they weren't taking care of business, clearly. And I guess this movie is about them taking care of business. What would you, I mean, what would you,
I mean, you're right. I think that's a good interpretation.
Okay.
I think the firm is taking care of business, but they're bad at taking care of business.
Okay.
But then everyone else is also bad at taking care of business. And
yeah, I mean, by that argument, like everyone was bad at taking care of business. Okay.
Unless the business was to take on a bunch of risk and then have to sell it at crazy prices to your counterparties. Unless that's your job.
If you're defining that as taking care of business, then I think they're actually all very good at taking care of business.
You know what? What's so funny about Margin Call is I feel like we're having a conversation about a movie that's from 2011, about 2008, but in the year 2026. And you're right that when you only say the word mortgage-backed security once, you can pretend the movie is about other things. And It can be more timeless. And so it was it was interesting to watch this movie today and be like, huh, where do I see this happening? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Kiah, I'm so glad you asked. I mean, yeah. So, like you said, this movie could be about anything, any financial crisis. It's not like one thing causes a financial crisis. It's about not understanding complex financial situations. It's about underestimating, uh, certain risk variables that have been the same forever. So you assume they can always be the same.
Sure.
I mean, I think that there are definitely certain places where we see some of that happening today. I mean, the word on everybody's lips right now is private credit, obviously.
Right.
Now, that's very, very different from like what we had in 2008, 2007. I mean, like, and even it's, it's like mesh with the financial system is different. That said, I mean, there are different risks, right? I mean, like the benefit of not talking about housing prices in margin call is that you can put any risk in there. So, you can say like AI taking over software companies and like, oh, that's an unexpected risk. Like, how does that, and you can talk about, oh, how like certain financial instruments that, normal people don't know anything about, how they touch so many different parts of the financial system that impact the regular economy.
Yeah.
That's relevant. I mean, I think the other thing that's like a little bit, I don't know if it's coincidental or ironic, but the fact that the financial crisis in 2007, 2008 also set up so many, it kind of led private credit to where it is now in the US. Like, all of the, leveraged lending guidance and certain regulations about securitizations and capital levels, things like that. I mean, that totally, helped private credit see the boom that it has seen.
Right. In the 15 years since, right? Like, it's only taken 15 years for private credit to explode into the risky behemoth that we see today in 2026.
Right. And I mean, like, the thing is, if one part of like a financial system implodes, that does not necessarily mean like recession, right? Like even if private credit really implodes and a bunch of private credit funds like go bust.
No.
Right. And people will lose money. But like but maybe not like financial crisis like 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
But when you start to like layer on a bunch of different risk factors that could happen, I think about like AI with data centers. Like I just read a column that like was talking about like the physical risks as opposed to, in 2007, 2008,
financial risks.
It wasn't like houses were going up in flames, literally.
Yeah.
It was that their values on paper were going up in flames.
Right.
But in this, I mean, like you have a data center, there's an energy crisis, there's a drought, like that's physical. And then that kind of like, trickles up. So, I mean, I think that watching movies like this and keeping things like this in mind, if anything, help you think more about what risks are we like not seeing.
Yeah.
And it's not housing prices here, maybe, but like, what risk are we not seeing?
I think if we are going to allow the movie to be so vaguely financial, at least make it applicable to many situations. So like, for me, I don't know what year this movie takes place deliberately. That was a deliberate choice by the filmmaker. But you could easily have probably substituted mortgage-backed securities for, private credit and loans that were sold to someone else, potentially. Or investors in the private, like you could probably change some titles and investors like, or pension funds, like, I didn't know we were investing in this or whatever. And I think about that, what does it tell us about risk opacity? And like when you don't know the real value of something relative to the price that you have carried it at. And I think, us as bank reporters, we've kind of watched the unrealized losses, the ramification of a paper loss, and to understand, like, we see a fire sale, we see the realization of the loss, and we see that they have to do it fast enough so that they don't have to actually record the loss relative to their equity position. And you and I have seen how many banks have to carry that loss until it matures because they don't want to realize it, right? And so these are, I think there's a lot of really interesting things about pricing and risk and counterparties that this movie allows us to think about if we're not thinking very specifically about mortgage-backed securities. I think a lot about, the role that, like, how crypto just is like reinventing every single aspect of financial services, but in the crypto way. And it feels like, I think that, like, if I never really looked too closely at like the Three Arrows, Voyager, Metropolitan Bank blow up, but like in the crypto winter, I believe this was happening, right? In part because of not margin calls per se, but the loss of value and the leverage lending that was going on in the crypto space, and the counterparties that were blowing up as a result of that. And it's just one of those things that, and it, like, to your point, a crisis in crypto in 2023 was contained enough from many other parts of the regulated financial services industry that, like, you could just not have to pay much attention to it. And then we have Silvergate, and then we have SVB, we have all these things that, like, and then it transmutes and I don't think crypto leads to SVB, but it doesn't, it's like kind of, it's just a contribute to, it contributes maybe to some of the instability. Piece. Yeah. And so this movie's useful for that, for sure.
Right. And I mean, I think, I don't know if I've already said my favorite line in the movie about like 3 other lines, but I think probably actually my favorite line in the movie,
your favorite,
my real favorite, hands down, is Jeremy Irons at the end when he's like eating his meal and drinking his Chianti, and he's like, it's just money. It's all made up, like pieces of paper with faces on it to make sure we don't kill each other to get something to eat. I mean, what does that make you think of? Like, like I'm to like what you were talking about before, and it is, and like when you don't, you just, and now we don't know the values of certain things. I mean, like, and when you don't know the value, like, how do you sell it? Or like, you end up selling it for 63.5 cents on the dollar and taking a $131 million loss on a single trade, like Will Bettany. So, I think it's a good, like, warning, kind of like a almost
tale.
Like, cautionary tale almost, but it feels almost like the Greek myth of the woman who could see the future but nobody believed her.
Cassandra,
yeah, in like the Trojan War, feels a little bit like that at times, but we'll see. We'll see.
Honestly, when the next private credit crisis happens and we watch Margin Call, the next time we do a rewatch of this, I guess it'll make so much more sense, and we can just like put that type of crisis into this movie and be like, see, it's all cyclical.
Yeah, hindsight 2020. And it is all cyclical. At the same time, the Jeremy Irons character, he lists like, all of the financial. Do you remember? He's like 1929. Like, he lists all these years that I like. He goes back to like 1850. It's like 1899, 1929, and then it's like 1989.
And this is a man who doesn't understand securitization. He has all these years memorized. This man doesn't understand securitization. Needs it explained to him. Come on.
Yeah, but yeah. So I mean, I think that's really interesting.
Well, Catherine, thank you so much for joining me. We will have to consult the very long list of movies that I have from that LinkedIn post, the suggestions. Maybe we'll pick something a little more lighthearted or not so recent for our next movie. But thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me. It was fun.